Okay, how are you? Good, good. Me too. My name is Ylva Sjöberg. I'm at Stockholm University and also very soon at USGS in Anchorage, working with permafrost and hydrology interactions, but I will not talk about that now. Instead, I will talk about two larger projects looking forward in permafrost research. What should we do in the next 10 years or so? And one is the permafrost research priorities, which I hope you've heard about, but it might have been a while, so I'll refresh your memory and tell you that we're still alive. The second one is a very similar project from the young researcher community, which I will also talk a little bit about. I hope you like my first slide. I did have a bit of problem finding a good first slide. I think it's important. So I started searching on Google for images on finding a path. And what you get when you search for that, you get images of beautiful pictures of, these steps in the sand, and so with some inspirational quotes on how to find your true path in life. So I'll just summarize the wisdom from those quotes as a startup. So, see if this works. I'm not moving. Oh. Good. So, to find your true path in life, you must first get completely lost. And then your true path will just appear in front of you. That's great, right? Well, there's an alternative approach if we don't want to take that risk, and that is, of course, to try to figure out really who are we, where are we coming from, and where do we want to go? I had a cheat sheet. So, who are we? In this room today, I think we have quite a few early career scientists in here. Can I see your hands? Early career scientists. That's like 20% of this room or something. Great, welcome. And perhaps we have some senior permafrost researchers, so people who've been working with permafrost research for at least 10 years. We have any? Can you see your hands? Permafrost research for at least 10 years. Oh, that's 15% or so, huh? And maybe we have a third group here. You've been doing research for quite a while, so you might be a senior researcher, but permafrost is a new topic. Do we have any of you here? Senior researchers? Huh? That's 5%, and I don't know who the rest of you are, but you're much welcome anyways. So we know a little bit of who we are, but where we're coming from. So let's travel a bit in time here. 10 years ago, long time ago, young researchers in the room, these are word clouds generated if you search on ISI Web of Science for permafrost for 2000 to 2005. You can get some statistics on the publications. So the globe shows the authors' nationalities for these publications from 10 years ago. And the larger the font, the more publications, right? So we can see USA, Canada, Russia, really big countries. 10 years ago. And this next blob up here is the larger research area that ISI Web of Science uses for their publications. And here we see that geology is really the largest subject. And then physical geography, quite big. Engineering, also a few. And then the red one up there said environmental scientists and ecology. And the other ones are so small that we can't even hear them if I read them because the frequency will be so high. But there are other subjects as well. So these people producing these publications about 10 years ago, did they have any identified permafrost research priorities? Some of you might know because you were, part of this. Well, not really specifically for our community. There were some initiatives, for example, they could relate to 10 years earlier. And now, hold on, young researchers, we're talking about 20 years ago. So think before high school, and dating and all that. 20 years ago, or 21 actually, there was an international conference on Arctic research planning. So that's the Arctic research community, the larger research community. And they identified some research priorities, and a couple of them relate to permafrost research. So let's take a look at them. Whoop, here's one. Quantification of contribution of Arctic systems to greenhouse gas budgets and carbon stores. Yeah? And identification of changes in energy and water fluxes. Okay, makes sense, right? These people 10 years ago also decided that maybe it's time now to have a second conference on Arctic research planning and do this again and see if anything changed. So let's take a look at these priorities, or there's actually one from 10 years ago. This is an all-inclusive sentence, so hold on now. What are the effects of climate variability and change on permafrost properties and extent that are known to be important in affecting the variability, magnitude, and composition of trace gas fluxes to the atmosphere? Following? Yeah, so we're talking still about connecting permafrost to greenhouse gas fluxes, I believe. So this was 10 years ago. Let's go back to today. And the world has changed a little bit. We can see now that the second largest country producing permafrost publications is China. That happens quickly, woof, like that. And the second largest subject here is now environmental scientist ecology. So that kind of harmonizes also a little bit with these priorities that we saw from the Arctic research community about the greenhouse gases, and I can imagine that as geologists and physical geographers needed some help from some more greener people to understand the greenhouse gases there. We have, from a couple of years ago, actually some priorities from the Antarctic community. So the SCAR horizon scan, I hope you've heard about that as well. Here are a couple of or the two most relevant permafrost questions that they come up with. So first, will there be release of greenhouse gases stored in Antarctic and Southern Ocean clathrates, sediments, soils, and permafrost as climate changes? And the second one, how will permafrost, the active layer, and water availability in Antarctic soils and marine sediments change in a warming climate, and what are the effects on ecosystems and biogeochemical cycles? Well, we can also see that they're also interested in understanding greenhouse gases and pretty much the basic process of permafrost, which we're all quite interested in. Yeah, we're moving forward. Tomorrow. So these two projects I will talk about, the permafrost research priorities, is today for us to come together and see, can we identify some new research priorities that are specific for the permafrost research communities? So these would be a bit more detailed, maybe not only one big statement about, yes, greenhouse gases, understanding is important, but we can go more into detail. So this is what we are hoping to do, and using a method that is very similar to the SCAR horizon scan and other similar projects, so building on community involvement. I'll also talk about initiatives from next generations of researchers, because of course for tomorrow we need a lot of really good researchers to navigate these new paths that we find. The permafrost research priorities. So the aim of this project is to define research priorities for the next 10 years for the permafrost science and engineering communities, using a transparent process and based on community engagement, and that is you. And this project is embedded in several international efforts and organizations, as you can see here. And the output is mainly targeting policymakers and funding agencies. So let's go more into detail to the process here. Oh, first, I said transparent. You can go into the website, permafrostpriorities.org, or just Google permafrost research priorities, and you can find all the documents that we have so far on here. So much welcome. This is the core group. It's coordinated by Ylva Sjöberg, and then you can see all the faces and names, and many of these people are here, so and this is very good. The aim is here that we should have a core group that can help work with questions from all the widths of the topics and areas that our community is working with. Now for the process. So step 1 in our process, this happened about 2 years ago. Most of you, I hope, got an email either directly to you or through some email listing such as Permalist or so, which invited you to submit your 3 favorite questions for the next 10 years on an online survey. And this you did, and we're very happy and overwhelmed by the response that we got. And after this, the core group has been working on these questions to consolidate them, to find are there any duplicate questions, because we don't want that. We want them to merge them, but maybe some questions are almost duplicate, and then it's a bit more work to find how to merge them. So we've been working quite a while on this. We're a little bit late on our schedule, but we're still working, and actually now this step 2 is finished, and we have a set of questions that are ready for step 3. So this is where we are. So step 3 will be the ranking of these questions. And here we need you again to help us rank the questions that you submitted and we consolidated, so we can identify which are our favorite questions here. And when this is done, the core group will write up a short paper, trying to get something hard-hitting that a policymaker or funding agency would take the time to read, and also something that we would take the time to read, which is more in detail describing the process of this work. So, I'll give you some more details of the collection of the research questions here. This was done, as I said, online. For you who did not want to submit questions online, you could also get a Word document, so we sent it by email. But most people submitted questions online. And we had some criteria that we had learned from previous similar efforts to follow for these questions. So you needed to have questions that were answerable through a realistic research design, and they should not be formulated as general topic areas, and so on, some more criteria like that. And these are the questions we got. Now it's starting to get fun, right? You submitted 650 questions to us. These came from 300 people in 37 countries, so more than the IPA countries that we have. And the primary expertise of these respondents were in descending order in geomorphology, ecology, climate change, engineering, hydrology, and so on, following this list here. And this kind of similar. It looks kind of similar to the word clouds we saw, right, from the Web of Science, so we hope that's a good representation there. If you look to your right, on the top chart there, you see the age distribution, and most of our respondents were in these categories from 30 years old to 54. But we also, as you can see, we have this kind of nice tails up to 70 plus years, and really a few from 0 to 19 years. We don't know exactly how old they were. And then on the bottom graph, you can see the number of years working in permafrost-related issues. And here you can see that actually most of our respondents have been working 10 years or less in working with permafrost. So you can compare to our hand waving in the beginning that this 10-year, during the last 10 years, a lot seems to have happened, perhaps. Let's move on. So, the next step, this will be the ranking of the research questions, and you will be invited again to participate in this. So, we got 650 questions, and we got them down to now 347 questions for you to work with. It's still quite a lot of questions, But they're categorized in research themes, and you will be asked to rank questions in the field of your expertise. So you will not have to rank 347 questions. But you will be invited to a new online survey where you can go in and you get a list of the questions. For example, I would get a list of hydrology questions, and these will appear in a certain order for me, but this is a randomized order, so if you go in and vote for hydrology questions, you get another order. And this is so that the order of the question will not influence our result, because there are quite a few questions, but they're really, really interesting questions. So I really encourage you to take the time and do this voting when we are ready for this. We will try to avoid, of course, double voting in this system, online system, and in the end, we will then end up with ranked questions in different themes. And from that, the core group will write the final product of this project. Now, about 20% or so of you were early career researchers, and maybe you think that, hey, haven't we done this already? This sounds really familiar. Well, let's see if this works. Okay, so you can learn from this little film that the early career research community works very efficiently and rapid. So 2 years ago, we had a conference in Évora, Portugal, and of course there was a young researcher workshop at this conference. And during this workshop, the early career researcher community organized a very similar project to the permafrost research priorities, but exclusively for early career researchers. And you can see the participants of this workshop and the organizing committee mostly in the front row here. And these are really great people, and I really wish that I had the time to read everyone's name, but look at them and find these people. So the process here was, as I said, very similar to the permafrost research priorities. We started up with requesting input from the early career research community on an online survey, and we got 83 questions from 31 early career researchers. But then step 2 and 3 differed from the permafrost research priorities, because here we prepared an exercise for this workshop where we reformulated these questions and made sure that we removed duplicates, maybe added some more questions and other aspects in there, and we sat for quite a while and working very focused on this. And in the end, we had a voting for these questions. So after the workshop, we had a ranking of the top questions for permafrost research from our perspective, the early career researchers' perspective. And another difference here is that we did not divide this into different themes, so we have an overall ranking for all the questions here. And then after that, it was just for the core group to meet again and put this into a paper describing what we did and what we found and what this could possibly mean. And you can read this in the Cryosphere in 2015, issue 9, I believe, and you will see the reference again for this. So this was published 1 year ago. So we went from start to end in like a year, a bit faster on the early career research community. But you, of course, want to know the outcome. What are these 5 top questions? Let's look at them. Shoop. Number 1, how does permafrost degradation affect landscape dynamics at different spatial and temporal scales? Number 2, how can ground temperature models be improved to better reflect permafrost dynamics at high spatial resolution? Number 3, in what ways can traditional environmental knowledge be quantified and used in permafrost research? Number 4, what is the spatial distribution of different ground ice types and how susceptible is ice-rich permafrost to future environmental changes? And last one, what is the influence of infrastructure on the thermal regime and stability of permafrost in different environmental settings? So as you can see, these span really almost the entire width of our communities. They're very, very different questions. One question that we might have expected to find here, but we didn't find it, like this greenhouse gas, how is that connected to permafrost? This question we do not have here. One potential reset for that is, of course, all these questions, we can somehow relate to that. We want to have good models to understand thaw, and from that we can understand what will happen to carbon a bit better. But also when you work with different questions, you might have some questions that are more similar. So we had quite a few of questions regarding carbon and in different ways. And they got quite a few votes, but not one single question got on the top 5. I'm just gonna end with a little push for the amazing young researchers communities that we have in our community. So, of course, the PIRN, which is the Permafrost Young Researcher Network, and then the larger APEX, which is a polar research community. They do a lot, and you can learn a lot. As long as I've been doing research, there has been APEX and PIRN, and I've really learned a lot from joining the activities of these networks. I really encourage everyone who is a young researcher to get involved, and everyone who's unfortunately not a young researcher anymore to just push someone else in that direction, right? And also, as we saw, the second largest country now from my word cloud was China in permafrost research. And I know that PIRN has been trying to reach out lately to get more Chinese early career scientists into the network. And we will have a permafrost conference soon in China. So any ways to find more paths to join the Chinese early career researcher community with the PIRN, I know that PIRN would greatly appreciate. I'll end just with some to-do lists for you for the week and some months to come. Yes, the Junior Meets Senior Lounge. You've heard about it several times already. Go there, make it great. And later today, you can hear more about the permafrost research priorities from the actual chair of the project, Ylva Sjöberg, and this is at 2:30. You can hear more about the permafrost young researcher workshop product on Thursday at 11:45 from Michael Fritz. And then you should read this paper, either before or after, whenever you have time, read this paper, maybe on the plane home. And then at some point, relatively soon, we hope, just as we get the technology ready for the voting systems, you will be invited to vote for the step 2, the ranking. Or the permafrost research priorities. If you get impatient, visit our website. And that's all I had. I thank Ig and Margareta Johansson for helping me with this presentation, and of course the core groups of these 2 projects, and everyone who participated in the service would actually fill this with meaning. Thank you.